Dr. Phillips.
Mr. Speaker, these bills have been brought under urgent circumstances which we would normally object to, but we will not in this instance. Because we understand that it is part of the structural benchmark requirements for the review from the fund, which is one reason why we won't object. The other reason why we won't object is because, as had been indicated, it really represents an effort to tidy up anomalies which have existed for some time. And indeed, what it does do is to bring our legislation and our current practice and the practice which will ensue from it into standard modern best practices that are typical of many other jurisdictions. So, Mr. Speaker, we support the bills, and indeed they ought to add some buoyancy overall to the stock market in the country. In that regard, Mr. Speaker, I'd make just one or two observations. First of all is that with respect to the overall stock market interest, the government has indicated its intention to do the divestment of the JPSCO, it was said, by way of the shares, by way of the stock market. But I would urge generally that we would be assisted in knowing what assets are intended for privatization by the government of Jamaica and what assets are intended for privatization by way of a stock listing. And I think that I would urge that in all circumstances where feasible, we provide an opportunity for the widest possible participation by the general public in this regard. Because I think we should want to encourage a wide spread of stakeholder as well as shareholder interest in the general economy. So two things then: can we get the range of companies? Can we get a list that are intended for divestment? Can we get a clear indication of what is intended for the stock market? And as best as possible, we urge again that there be wide, broad-based participation in ownership where that is feasible. I would like also to highlight, Mr. Speaker, that, as has been indicated also, the question of where we have permitted share buyback, in the case of one company that I can recall, it had to be done by way of granting a waiver of the income tax payable and other taxes payable. And obviously that would be a time-consuming and quite untidy way, but it is particularly constraining because the rules currently, which I believe currently exist, but which existed, limits provides a quantitative limit to the Minister of Finance's exercise of the power to waive. And so this really removes any share buyback measure from that constraint, which is a good thing. But I was struck, Mr. Speaker, by an article in a newspaper, I believe it was today, speaking generally about waivers, which expressed the view that there was much ire and upset on the part of some members of the diaspora community regarding an ambulance from England, I believe it was, which they said could not have been cleared because waivers could not be given. I don't know what the facts are, but I would urge the government to clear the facts. Waivers can be given. It's just that they cannot be given in an unlimited way, and that there's a monthly or quarterly limit on the extent of the discretion that can be exercised. So all it would mean is that the government needs to determine the priorities that will be exercised, and that in fact I would expect that the gift from the diaspora would constitute a priority for the government to do it. But it needs to be corrected, because the diaspora community might have the view that these things can't be sent. We appreciate them, and I'm sure you do too, appreciate them sending to support hospitals and schools and other things. It's just that, in fact, it is because of that why we fought for that discretionary power and said that it had to be, it could not be an absolute elimination of a minister's power. Yes, and they agreed. So I think we need to make that very, very clear, that the minister can exercise discretion, but it is not unlimited discretion. And so we would all urge that the diaspora gifts, and there's a reality about gifts too. I mean, it might be said, everybody can just pick up and send anything they please, because that was settled long before, that it has to fall within a universe of need, a range of needs that the country has. I mean, you might want to send a solar-powered car. We couldn't do it because we couldn't, but there are needs that can fit into our system. With those comments, Mr. Speaker, I again express support for the bills that are before us, and which I think command universal support in this House. Thank you very much.